Hi everybody, Richard Tromans here again, Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're doing another product walkthrough. This time we're looking at Jylo. To tell us a bit more about it is Sean. Hey Sean, good to have you with us.
Hi Richard, good to see you.
Before we get into the product walkthrough itself, if you could just tell people what Jylo is and maybe a little bit about how it started, just to introduce it.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Sean Curran. I'm the CEO of Jylo. Jylo is an AI platform that we're bringing to market. So, sort of general legal assistant, sort of similar to ChatGPT, but for the enterprise and for law firms. And then we have an advanced agentic sort of playbook marketplace where law firms can build advanced workflows, sort of taking one or many documents into a sort of process, analyzing them, verifying them, checking them, and then producing work product at the end. So it can solve for diligence, it can solve for discovery, it can solve for just taking an email and doing a report on it, or a whole bunch of different use cases. Jilo got started just over a year ago now. So I think, as you know, I was working for private practice for about 20 years in a variety of different roles, as an engineer, as an architect, and head of department, and then director of department. More recently at Travis Smith, and about a year ago, seen a huge opportunity for these advanced LLMs to support legal work. And so managed to negotiate a sort of exit with Travis Smith, who I worked for at the time. And they effectively became sort of seed investors, so sort of venture arm, and a lot of other law firms have been doing that recently. So they sort of the first time they had done it, but it became a kind of a venture investor in seed within Jilo. We created an independent company. And then, the 1st of July last year was the beginning of our financial year. We took a few of the engineers in the AI team from Travers, hit the ground running. And yeah, over the last year, we've just been building this platform, gaining traction, getting customers. And yeah, it's been really exciting.
Fantastic, fantastic. And thank you for the introduction. So Sean, I'll let you now take it away and do the product walkthrough. I will come back at the end in usual fashion, but please take it away.
I'm going to start off with the dashboard and just run you through that. So obviously, really going to focus on product demo today. I want to show the platform and all the different things that it does and it supports. So I think the thing to say about Jilo is our platform is matter centric, sort of project centric because we sell into other industries, but certainly matter centric when it comes to legal. That has come from 20 years of experience that I have of working with matter-centric tools and understanding the importance of collaboration within a law firm. Very rarely in a law firm does anything ever happen in a silo. You are always escalating to somebody to get something checked or delegating to somebody to help you. And so this idea of legal AI as an assistant for the individual lawyer didn't really make sense to us. And we thought that it was important for all of the kind of AI work to happen collaboratively within a collaborative workspace. And so when we land in Jilo, you have the dashboard and it sort of shows you a bunch of these different, we could call them agents, we could call them playbooks, a bunch of different words for them, but they're effectively workflows where information comes in, it's analyzed by AI, it's approved by humans, and then information is spit back out at the end. It's kind of broadly, I think, the best definition that we can give to all of the different labels that are out there at the moment for agentic, augmented workflows, etc., etc. I'll come back to those later. We also, similar to the DMS systems that you have within law firms, we recognise that a lot of the time lawyers are looking to work individually. Maybe there's some personal prompts you want to ask of AI. Maybe they don't want to share something with the partner yet because they're still not sure and they don't want everyone to see the prompts. So everyone does have a personal project, and that's provisioned by default when you log into Jilo, when someone logs into Jilo. So little ad hoc things that you want to do personally. But the architecture is all very much sort of centered around these matters, around these projects. And so if I just go into my project list here, I've got a list of different projects. We've just mock created the sort of classic client matter number, client name, project name. These are all fictitious, just to sort of show. And if I just jump into this project here, you can see that I've got an overview, I've got some assistants, I've got some files, some flows, and some team members. If I just jump into the files, sort of traditional folder structure and file structure that you would expect to see in any kind of content management or file management system. Again, collaborative. So that's the sort of file section. We have flows and we have assistant, which I'll come back to, and then we have team. Inside team, we have all of the different individuals who are sort of collaborating with us on this project. You have the ability to add and remove at any point any individual that you want to add. So I can add Zach to this, hit save, and Zach will now come in as a general user. You can edit that so that he becomes an admin, gives additional privileges, additional sort of project-centric privileges. So that's kind of the sort of team-centric collaboration element. Again, really trying to mirror the existing tools that lawyers use on a day-to-day basis around sort of collaboration. I remember far too often when I was in private practice technologist trying to adopt consumer tools. I remember a very famous e-signing product that was very consumer into the enterprise, and it's always very, very difficult to do. So we wanted to make sure that the platform was Meta-centric at the beginning. I just go into Assistant now. We have very similar to sort of the leading consumer assistants, very similar interface that you'll see from all of them. Trying to keep this as simple as possible. Think in a law firm, you've got mature, advanced users, and I'll show you the kind of playbook building process for them shortly. But you do have to have a low barrier to entry for those partners, for those non-tech savvy lawyers who you want to get in, you want to win over, and you want them to just be able to engage with AI on a kind of assistant basis. So really made that user experience slick. There's a whole bunch of workflows that sit behind this to sort of understand the different prompts, but the interface is really simple. I should also say before I sort of start asking some prompts and questions that we are a multi-model platform, and that allows for the law firm or any of our customers to select from leading frontier models, and we are committed to continuing to add any new frontier models that come to market. We're just about to host some of the other models from the different hyperscalers, the Googles and the Amazons. And the goal for us within our settings, as you can see here, in our model selection process, is to basically have across the three hyperscalers all of the leading frontier models, and it's up to the customer to decide which models they want to turn on or off. We don't take a position on any of them. As you'll see here, we have DeepSeek. There has been a lot of misinformation about that model being hosted within Chinese servers, but actually Microsoft now host it across the world. The model doesn't have any bias. It is extremely good as a model, and also it's very cheap. We're just giving that option in the way that Microsoft give the option to us through Azure. We're giving that option up to our customers for them to turn that on or off if they wish to. You've got all those different models as well. And then you can deploy across different regions. So if you've got, data jurisdictional requirements where inference has to happen in region, even in the UK, we have some customers who have that as a challenge. You can select the models in the UK. If you want to deploy them maybe globally, if you're able to do that as a business, then you have that option to do that. So just going into Assistant, I'm going to now go and select a couple of documents. Actually, I'm going to grab term sheets. I'll grab 3 of them, hit save. I've now added those 3 documents, summarize the key issues across each of these term sheets in a table format, and let that run. That will now run through and do that analysis. I've obviously specified there that I want the output in a table format. We had some prompts under the hood that kind of forced that on people. As our customers don't always want a table. Sometimes I want a list, sometimes I want a different structure. So again, with these models, they're really intelligent. You've got to just kind of get out of the way of them. So we kind of let the customer decide, blank canvas, write the prompt that you want to write. As the customer and the users in our customer get more mature, they can have their own little ways and nuances of the way that they want these models to work. And so it's not our place to have any, assumption or implied sort of prompts under the hood that get in the way of that. One of the things that we should say is we have, very similar to the leading consumer tools, the ability to set user preference prompts. So if you always want a table, then you have the ability to get a table. If you always want the model to be succinct and clear, if you want it to speak like a lawyer, you can put any of these prompts in, and that's effectively appended to the output of any response. So as you can see here, quite a good response back from the model. As I used 4.1 to do this analysis. If I select the citation and just sort of minimize on the left, you can see that I'm getting straight to the part of the doc on the right-hand side. So those citations are really sort of valuable for providing evidence as to the assertion that the model is making. You have the ability to kind of get through to that 20% management equity, 20% management equity as selected here. As the context window of these models get larger, like GPT 4.1, if people don't know what context window is, it's the amount of words that you can fit into the model at one time. 4.1 can take 1 million tokens, which is about 700,000 words. That's a huge amount of information. It's about 20 large contracts. We, with 4.1, let you put all of that information in and then get an analysis and aggregate across all of them. Some of the other assistants sort of struggle to group and reason across all of the data at once, which makes it difficult to provide sort of summary tables in this format. But that's nothing smart that we're doing. It's just the models advancing and the context window getting larger. Again, making sure that we get out of the way of it and just passing these models back to the customer to use them in the way they want to. So that's that sort of table, and that's the assistant. As you can see here, we've got the different documents, and you can sort of navigate through to them. I'm now going to just jump across to the more advanced functionality within Jylo. So we've only got about 15 minutes today, so I'm going to try and rush through this as quickly as I can. But in here, we now have the playbooks. I should just clarify that we use the word playbook more broadly as a predefined process that has a natural beginning and an end, with a bunch of different steps in between that to create some form of outcome based on some input. Other industries use that word, lawyers use it very much in the context of a client's playbook and how they want to mark up a contract. And we just like to clarify that that's not how we're using it. We're just using it more broadly as a process. The word workflow is a little bit too confusing. The word agents, we don't like it. I think it's being overused as a term. But effectively, all of these playbooks can do a variety of different things. So I'll jump into a couple of them and just show you. Inside the witness statement compliance check playbook, we have a playbook that is effectively analyzing a transcript of a witness interview and determining whether it aligns to the Civil Procedure Rules Practice Directive 57 AC. So you've got a whole bunch of transcripts from all of the depositions and all the witness interviews that you've done. You just want to make sure it aligns to the CPRs in the UK. Again, any sort of practice directive in any jurisdiction, you would be able to pull them down from wherever they're published on the internet. And you can then specify, you're analysing a witness statement to determine if it complies. Here is a definition of what leading language is, so far as the courts define it. Does the witness statement include that definition as a quick check? So that's an example of a playbook. Another example in a completely different direction. Paralegals rejoice on this one. I know that this is a pain for them and has been for a long time. I've just got a dump of contracts from the customer. I'm doing due diligence, and before we can even start to have a look at them, we need to organize them. We don't know what's an employment contract, what's a lease, what's a supplier contract, what's a sales contract. Very simple playbook, which lets you auto-categorize and tag the document so that you can then do follow-up actions like moving them into folders, etc. So just a completely different use case, more of a kind of workflow. That's another part of that. Whenever you have a response in Jylo, you can specify text. So summarize the document. Does this change of control clause exist or not? Yes, no. List all the clauses in the contract, list the values. Between a range of values, between 1 to 10, 10 being serious breach of ethics, 1 being innocuous. How would you rate this email as part of an investigation into the activity of a company, for example? Or do you want to start generating text? That's the last option. So a multitude of different answer types. And again, those models that you've selected, all available within the playbook. You can have a different model for different prompts. Really powerful. If it's a really important question and the model always struggles with it, then go right up to one of the most advanced models. If it's a very basic question, then maybe you want to use one of the cheaper ones. And one of the other things that we have as well is conditionality. And so I'm just going to quickly go and grab playbook that maybe has a condition in it, and just to show how it works. So extract the name of the contract using the title. Does the intellectual property created by one party become the property of the counterparty? IP ownership assignment. And if I just expand that and go to event triggers, you can see here that we're only asking that follow-up question of what events would trigger the IP ownership. if there is an IP ownership assignment. So, and you can go as infinite, you can have as many steps as you want on that conditionality, which is really, really valuable as you kind of work your way through. And also, you don't always have to analyze the document again. You can take the answer of the previous result and the quote from the citation of the previous result and just interrogate and analyze that all the way down. So that makes the quality slightly better because you're not asking the question of the entire document again. You're just asking it of the subcomponent that has been extracted, maybe the IP ownership assignment provision, for example. So that's the kind of workflow. I'm going to come back to the flow assemblies in a minute. And I'm just going to go back to the flows, and I'm just going to show what it looks like when one of these are running. So here's the Atticus dataset, the contract understanding dataset, publicly available contracts that a lot of vendors use to test and assess their platform. And as you can see here, we've got all of the different values on the left-hand side. And if I just go down here and go to New York, then I've got those contracts I've assigned there. Go to governing law in New York and Illinois, view evidence. It takes me to the part of the document. So one of the things that we think is really valuable in Jylo is the ability to analyze the contract and see the contract in one view. So rather than perhaps pivoting this view to something Excel like, the feedback that we had from lawyers was that they still need to see the document. They're still going to look at the document, and that has to be the most important entity in Jylo, and that has to be front and center. So you've got that. We do have a pivot, very similar to that type of view, but it isn't fixed. It isn't static. It's more document centric than row centric. Inside each of these documents, you have each of these components that are approved or rejected with the ability to assign to different individuals. So if the competition clauses need to be assigned to the competition specialist, then you have the ability to do that. But if I go into the other document, view evidence, it takes me to the part of the document, and then I get California. And that's the view that the specialist would come in and look at as they sort of do that analysis. Uh, so yep, and then the outcome after kind of going through and verifying and validating all of these different fields is that you would sort of check that that's California, you've got the evidence, and then you'd want to be generating some form of report at the end of that. So if I just go back here and go to my flows and maybe pick this private equity term sheet flow, where I've gone through that and done that analysis, and go to management share, view evidence, it's taken to the part of the document, all these fields have been verified. I then have the ability to generate an output at the end. And so you can see here that I've now got all of those fields verified. I've got a comparative analysis, investment structure and valuation, security type, investment structure and valuation, and it's got all of the different fields extracted from the three term sheets that I've done that analysis on. So really valuable for the process of ingestion of information, extraction of key pieces of information, assessment and verification by the human, and the lawyers in the loop, and then the production of some form of work product at the end of that, which is what you can do. And I should just go back and show, I'll just do a quick search, term sheet, and then go here and go to flow assembly, and now you can see where you're kind of building out that document automation capability. So rather than having the model draw from information and then generate using generative AI and potentially make a mistake and hallucinate, we are actually feeding in that verified piece of information as it sort of stands, the verified piece of information. So if you've got the contract value and five lawyers have agreed that that's the current position of contract value, then AI shouldn't be allowed to generate that next token and guess the next character. It should actually feed that verified field in. It'd be really frustrating to the lawyers if that wasn't the case. These playbooks can be published. Different people have got access. You can have builders who edit and amend them, and then you can have consumers who can use them. And as I say, they can be used for a variety of different things.
So, I mean, I never realized actually. I mean, I knew Jylo had many features, but I didn't realize you did so much. I mean, really, you could argue that you're kind of no different to any of the other big platforms. You're doing a whole ton of different tasks, a whole bunch of skills.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think the exact, probably there and thereabouts in terms of everyone else. I don't think we've got any functionality that everyone else doesn't have in terms of adding the different columns here. You know, if you want to manage, if you want to filter the documents by management share, then you can do that. 32.4, you've got the ability to filter on that. It's a slider. You know, so you get to go into the documents that you care about. So maybe you're coming in and just looking at, you know, what contracts have I been assigned, then you've got the ability to say just Sean, and it filters those docs. So that's the kind of pivot, but all of it goes back to the kind of document because that's really, you know, there's somebody responsible for that, and then there's somebody responsible for all these subcomponents. So yeah, I think we've got all of the same functionality as everyone else, both on the assistant side and on the more advanced review side.
Fantastic. And in terms of, because we've got to kind of wrap it up now a bit, in terms of getting this on someone's laptop, if you're a lawyer and you're looking at this, or you're the innovation team and you want to get this for the lawyers at your firm, how do they do this? How do they bring Jilo in to the firm?
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of different models. We do pilots, we do, you know, proof of values. You know, the platform is a cloud-based platform, so we host it in a Azure environment, and it's quite easy for us to spin it up and either as a proof of value or as a longer-term agreement. We are now also doing a few deals where we're hosting Jylo within the customer's Azure environment. It's actually quite simple and straightforward for us to do that. And that's something that we can also support if law firms want their own instance of Jylo internally. So we can support a variety of different models from a deployment perspective.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I don't know if you want to talk about pricing. You don't have to give us anything too specific, but just generally, how are you pricing this for people?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's hard to give like an actual figure on the
No, don't
basis.
worry. I mean, just
Yeah, no, no,
generally,
but just on the
generally.
basis of like the customer. So,
Mm.
you know, if you've got a customer who's kind of more keen for assistant, we find a way to price assistant because the amount of tokens that are used on chat of a document is far less than maybe a forensics company who are going to be doing discovery, you know, day in, day out with thousands, if not millions of documents. So we try our best to kind of price depending on how the customer wants us to price, depending on how we expect the usage. We do sell those credits. So every model in Jylo here, are we still sharing?
Yep.
Yeah, so every model here has a cost. You know, some are lower, some are higher. In Jylo, you buy a credit. A credit in Jylo is £5. That's the kind of list price for them. And we have an exchange rate to the different models. And so if you use 5.4, which is actually quite a decent model now, it's Microsoft's, then you'll deplete your credits really slowly. If you use O1, you'll deplete your credits really quickly because that model is very expensive.
Interesting, interesting. Well, I think we could do an entire other chat all about that particular aspect, actually, because that's fascinating. And I'm sure we could talk a lot about agents and a whole bunch of different things. But for now, uh, let's leave it there. Just want to say thank you very much, Sean, and good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.